Okay, the condo project is a big project, and it's located in a very strategic place. In Ocean Grove, our style of life is quieter and more comfortable and slower. And if you go down to Ocean Avenue and you can look east and see an untrammeled vista. There's nothing out there. Now, the condos would cut a lot of that off on the south end of Ocean Grove. It's going to be 7 or 8 stories high, and it's bound to cut off a lot of view, especially from houses on Broadway between Central Avenue and Ocean Avenue. And these are, the matter of vista is that once you cut it off, you never get it back. You really don't get it back unless you blow up the building or demolish the building. And we have just so much of it. It's like shoreline. You only have just so much of it. And I'm afraid that once they start building condos down the south end, that they'll start encroaching on the median strip between Ocean Avenue and the Boardwalk, and thereby cutting the vistas off from a lot of different places.
Well, I've been living here in Ocean Grove for about 8 years. I live right here on Broadway. And I retired about 8 years ago with the understanding that I had open space here. Now, when I look down at this area here where they're proposing to put this project up, they're talking about a 7 or 8 story building down here at the south end. Now, if you look down that end down there, it casts an enormous shadow onto Broadway itself, and it would block the sea breeze and also block my view of the ocean here. So I'm very much opposed to this special project they're putting up here. And I'm also against the Camp Meeting Association for recommending this building going up down here. They promised us a few years back that this south end, after they sold the north end, they would put a swimming pool here, and they would also put bathhouses here to accommodate the people. Now they're going back on their word, and they're going to try to put this project up down here, and the whole township is against it.
Well, the Camp Meeting Association chose not to use that valuable site for bathhouses. After the old structures that used to be there were removed, old trailers, that site became unsightly, became a problem for the Camp Meeting Association because the only people who used it were trespassing parkers, automobile parkers. There's been litter, and there are complaints from the neighbors in the area about litter in the area on that site. It's become a security problem. It's an eyesore because of the old broken bulkhead and the old broken pilings in the lake alongside the site. We intend to spend in excess of $150,000 improving the bulkhead and also removing the broken structures on the other side of the boardwalk. These are things that will generally make the site attractive, safer, and obviously the Camp Meeting Association could not find someone who would think about developing bathhouses as a private matter and paying them that kind of money for the land. That would not make sense. The only project that makes sense from an economic standpoint is the condominium project. And since the zoning would have permitted 50-foot or 3-story garden apartments of a certain density, or a hotel without any density limitations of 65 feet, the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance is being met by a structure that's 68 feet high that involves a lower density than a hotel, a less intense use than a hotel, and a higher density than a garden apartment complex. Garden apartment complex won't work on this site because a garden apartment complex involves 3 stories and lateral development. If you do lateral development, you cover too much of the site, you don't have parking. If you take into consideration the 50-foot requirement of a setback, that cuts into your possible lateral development of the site. So the only thing you can do is go up vertically without making a skyscraper. And this is perfect because it doesn't go up too high. Some people may disagree with that. And it doesn't involve too great a density for that size piece of land. And it certainly will not be the cornerstone of a whole bunch of new development in Ocean Grove. It's one isolated project.
Certainly, there is no real alternative to building vertically when you can't build horizontally. Ocean Grove is pretty crowded, and building this condo is only taking crowded building and moving it vertically instead of horizontally.
Well, definitely, it would change the quality of life that we have tried to maintain. And in late August, we were at a tremendous meeting out in Neptune Township, which we're all a part of, to try and preserve some ordinances that would develop and maintain the quality of lifestyle in our community. So to me, this is a real dichotomy to go ahead and then develop this area, even if it is for money. There is not the need for it. We have tremendous density of housing in this community to begin with, and I can see no point to increasing it. We're going to create a tremendous traffic problem in that area. There's going to be what I call a utility overload, where you're going to need more police protection, more fire protection, electric, water, and that type of thing, and will generate a problem with trash. There is a fact that there's 5.1 pounds of trash generated per day per person in this county, and we're going to do nothing more but take that times 52 or 54 condos that they'd like to develop there, with at least 2 or 3 persons per unit. That 5.1 pounds per person. I don't think we need it.
Well, there are always problems with traffic in Ocean Grove, and there are always problems with parking. However, they are submitting this plan, as you probably would notice from the original drawings, so that there will be more than adequate parking under the building for those who are living in the building. Far more than we would have if we had a hotel situation there. The traffic flow in that area is very good. If you compare this to the North End site, where we're putting up a major building up there, and we'll have far more units, a factor of 4 times more units, the congestion up there will be infinitely greater. This particular building has free access on 3 sides, has a good traffic flow, will be readily accessible for firefighting, fire control, and all other safety factors considered. So individual homes, apartments, hotel, condominiums, whatever use is developed in that area, it will bring more cars. But one of the positive factors here is that there are enough off-street parking spaces provided that it would not really seriously affect our traffic flow in that area.
Well, in the summer months, Ocean Grove is confronted with a very serious problem. And that's something that everyone who lives here, or who works here, and who develops here is aware of. The problem doesn't justify not doing the project, because the problem will not be exacerbated to any great extent by this one project. This one project is being developed on the last remaining piece of vacant oceanfront property in Ocean Grove. It will not be the cornerstone of some future development in Ocean Grove. And the problem that will exist in the summer months in Ocean Grove will always exist in the summer months of Ocean Grove. And it's a welcome problem, in my opinion. It might be considered not welcome from some people's standpoint, but to me, when human beings come to a community, that's good. When they come to use the beach and the public facilities and to enjoy the architecture of the community, that's good. And because Ocean Grove is a wonderful community, people come here, and they come here, unfortunately, with their cars. That's the nature of our American way of life. We don't have tremendous amount of mass transportation, and that's the way it is, and there'll always be a problem. What I've been told, and you can confirm this with the Camp Meeting Association, is that they have or are in the process of abandoning any thoughts of developing the other South End property that they have, which is closer to the Methodist home building, and having that property used as parking for the summer months, which means the problem will be alleviated to the extent that a number of cars, a great number of cars, will fit on that land. It's vacant land now. Obviously, there may be visitors to my building who may have to struggle along with all the other people who come here to find a parking space. That's a problem that will be confronted and will always be confronted, and quite honestly, I don't think it'll prevent them from coming here. They'll still come here and they'll struggle to find a place to park during a summer weekend, but quite honestly, this building is being built for all year-round living, and the problem is only 2 months a year, and on the good days during those 2 months. So that I don't think that that's a significant problem that should stand in the way of developing the site.
On the other hand, legislation could stand in the way of developing the site. In a recent Asbury Park Press article, Senator Richard Van Wagner called for a moratorium on any type of building along the coastline. An organization like the American Littoral Society could also lobby against the project.
The American Littoral Society is an organization of members, about 5,000 of them, 1,500 in New Jersey, and our interest and their interest especially is the coastal zone. The beaches, the dunes, the riverfronts too, and out into the shallow sea. Coastal littoral means shoreline, so that's what we're interested in. We have field trips, meetings, we have publications, and we do a great deal of environmental protection activity, both within the state and other states and in Washington. So we lobby for better laws, and we try to watch the regulations and make sure that they're enforced.
Bennett explains how he would become involved in the Ocean Grove project.
Okay, the way we would be involved in that is that any kind of construction of that size in a coastal zone of New Jersey, which is defined by law, needs a state permit, and it's called a Coastal Area Facility Review Act permit. And for a developer to build more than 25 units in the coastal zone, more than 25 residential units, either in a motel or a hotel or 25 houses, he needs a permit from the state. Those state permits are public information, and there's a quite involved process that the developer must go through in order to get this kind of permit. We get the regular weekly bulletin from the Department of Environmental Protection, which lists all the permits that are being applied for. So if nothing else, if no one else alerts us to this, we would get the document that says that so-and-so wants to put so-and-so in such and such a place. There then are a large number of steps they have to go through, the developer, in order to get that permit. In the case of Ocean Grove, we have been alerted by a number of local residents asking questions about this proposal. And what I told them was to alert the state of their interest in the proposal to make sure that they got advised when it came through. In the specific situation of Ocean Grove, our initial reaction would be negative, in fact, very negative. And it would have to do primarily with building a high-rise structure so close to the ocean. And in very much oversimplifying the CAFRA, coastal area regulations, in general, high-rise construction is discouraged in the coastal zone along the beach. And if it's going to be permitted, it's usually not permitted very close to the shore. There are exceptions. Obviously, Long Branch has some high-rises. Atlantic City has them. The ruling there is that they will permit high-rises in areas where there are already existing high-rises, but they don't like to see new high-rise construction in an area where there is none. And there are a lot of other secondary issues, whether this is an area of high-risk erosion, whether there is any problems involved with public access to the beach, drainage, all the other things that come up in a general application, but the special kinds of items of interest that kick in because this does involve a state permit.
Okay, the entire parcel is owned by the Camp Meeting Association. They have a title to the property. There's been a claim made by the Department of Environmental Protection, the Division of Coastal Resources, that the state may have a riparian interest because a part of the site, they claim, was flowed by tidal water back in the early 1800s prior to the Fletcher Lake being closed off to the sea. For a period of time, Fletcher Lake, which was formerly known as Goose Pond, did have an opening to the sea, and that opening was closed off by some people prior to 1867. We think Mr. Bradley and his friends may have done that well before the CAN meeting founders bought the land from Mr. Bradley. And we felt that closing off was justified because Goose Pond was historically an inland body of water, and we've done some historical research going back to 1781. I spent several days at the Historic Society trying to find some evidence that the land was filled in order to avoid a recurrence of what we believe was a very severe 1841 storm, which forced a tremendous amount of fresh flood water from rains and unprecedented rainfall that summer to actually physically push the beach aside and water flow into the ocean. And that opening was depicted on a map in 1867, which forms the basis of the state's claim that a part of the land was tidal flowed in the past. We have filed a memorandum of law which contains historic documentation as well as legal argument requesting a no interest determination from the Bureau of Coastal Resources. And they are studying that memorandum right now. It could very well be that they may continue claiming that there's a riparian interest here, and if there is, we may file a lawsuit against the state for a declaratory judgment based upon all of the evidence that we've uncovered about this site. It's a very complex issue, one involving legal principles that go back to ancient England. And there's not enough time during this program for us to go into all the details of that. And it's a very, very exciting area and an interesting area to discuss, but it would take a good hour before one could truly understand some of the issues involved here. But to bring it down to the practical problems that may result from this, we may have to buy something from the state. Even if we think that they don't truly own it, we may compromise with them if they are willing to compromise, and both the Camp Meeting Association and the developer will contribute towards the purchase of the riparian interest and get a riparian grant. That's just another one of the legal problems that we have developing the site. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But doing projects like this is difficult, and there are many, many elements and many obstacles, and you hope that you do it by perseverance and by hard work and a little luck. And I'm hoping that that problem doesn't turn into a major problem.
Well, as president of the Homeowners Association, I feel that this structure is totally out of character with that area of Ocean Grove. Many of the neighbors have complained. They're afraid of shadows, their house being perpetual darkness. This structure is so large and so unsightly and so close to the ocean. I'm also concerned about the concerns of the ocean with another storm perhaps undermining the building. The bulkhead they're proposing, Burley Beach, has a 10-foot bulkhead in, I believe, and they also want to add to that. But I remember Burley Beach had to replace that bulkhead a couple of storms ago, which was a few years ago, and that's the second bulkhead in that place. Also, the lake it's just too much of a building in that little bitty space. It's just not even acre of land and a massive building. I just feel it's just totally unacceptable to what we want to do here in Ocean Grove.
As far as wind and rain, the building will be designed to withstand certain hurricane or gale force winds without having any water penetration. That's the reason I chose the RBA group, because they're not only architects but they're engineers, and I wanted to be certain that once the building is constructed that there will be no problems with leakage. I've been involved with major apartment house projects that have had that problem, and it's an awful problem, and we're trying to avoid that from the first day of design, make sure it's done properly.
Well, myself, I'm not particularly in favor. I spoke with one of the entrepreneurs engaged in the development of this project, and he told me that the price of the condominiums would be approximately $140,000 to $200,000, depending upon the size. And he indicated that he felt it would bring in what he called a better class of personnel, a better class of people. Now, a better class of people in his mind, apparently, is people with more money to spend on condominium. We are basically in Ocean Grove a middle-class strata. And to bring in people who have more money and are not necessarily of the same likes or dislikes, the same standards as we have. For example, more money might mean cocaine peddlers or panders or croupiers. The Lord knows what. As long as they have money in his vision, they're a better class of people. I think there'd be a social conflict there, unnecessary to introduce in a village this size. That's one of my objections. The other one is the impact it will have on the immediate neighborhood. We are several blocks away ourselves, so we won't feel it. However, the neighbors are going to be shaded during most of the spring and half of the winter months. In the spring, the flowers in their windows will not receive any sunlight. Winter and spring, it's going to be the same situation. Snow won't melt in the winter, flowers won't come up in the spring. So that's another feeling that I have, the height. It's higher by far than anything in the Ocean Grove, with the exception of our auditorium. And that's a singular development there that doesn't inflict its shadow upon anyone, mostly a tent colony. Another facet of my objection is the fact that it lacks the ambiance of Victorianism, which most of the village has. Our houses are built in Victorian style, or it's built in the Victorian era. This thing is a flash-in-the-pan bit of modernism, and as such, I dislike it in this particular locus.
I'm currently secretary to the Board of Trustees of the Camp Meeting Association and a member of their executive committee. As such, we have been attempting to develop the land at the south end because, as you know, it's quite open, and the Camp Meeting is in a financial situation, an unpleasant one at this time, and any development down there would bring dollars into our treasury.
Now, on the other hand, you're also involved with the Historical Society.
Yes, I'm president of the Historical Society of Ocean Grove. It's very active, one of the largest in the state. And many members of our organization live at the south end, live in Ocean Grove, and find this project to be too large all of a sudden in an area that really has never had any development. And because of that, are objecting to its approval.
How do you see the project as it stands now?
Well, I really don't like it. For many years, that area, since its beginnings, has been a pavilion, a bathhouse, changing rooms, and a restaurant, snack bar. That's what Ocean Grove needs, and that's what I'd like to see there. And the Camp Meeting Association, for a number of years, has been attempting to interest developers in that concept, perhaps an all-year-round pool, a health club, even some renting rooms for a nice summer hotel. But unfortunately, it has not been economically feasible.
Well, Ocean Grove is unique. As you know, the buildings are very close together, and we have enough difficulty, and the Ocean Grove Fire Department has done an outstanding job and recognized throughout the state as one of the fastest and one of the best, with its two pumper companies from Stokes and Washington, and the company I'm involved with, the latter company, Eagles, and maintaining excellent fire service. However, because of the buildings that have been so close, and we've been trying to stay on top of things, and we've had all the difficulty with the older structures in wood, I don't believe that anything above 4 or 5 stories are really going to help anything. It could be a real disaster. And once that starts, and once we get, if that building should pass and get in Ocean Grove, why we may really be into a lot of problems with bigger structures. We're not physically capable of fighting tower infernos.
I'm a dreamer, and I have to admit, I do understand Camp Meeting Association needs to unload a piece of property if it's not going to use it. We had all been promised that when they sold the north end property, the south end would then be developed into pretty much what it was before. There were changing rooms, there were bathhouses, and of course we all know we can't go back to all having our own bathhouses because they were just rickety old wooden little cubicles, and we all loved them just because they were there. We know we can't go back to rows and rows of bathhouses, but I would like to see possibly a motel, maybe 2 stories high, maybe a 3rd story to be condos, so that there would be an opportunity for some income to help support the property. Changing rooms and a really snappy restaurant. We could really use one along the shore, and when people who are provincial enough to say in Ocean Grove, we've got to remind them that Ocean Grove draws people from all over, and I think it could be supported, and a swimming pool down there, possibly a health club. And those are things that I think may not be great money makers, but I think they could support themselves. And I think maybe that's the way we ought to be going. The state still has riparian rights, and possibly if we were able to get people like Senator Wagner, who wants to see a moratorium on building along the shore, to support it, maybe the state would recognize its role in preserving something very important and providing the land to us, so that we could then go with trying to get the buildings done. And this, I know, I've heard about the developers who have come in with plans that are not cost effective for them, but I'm not talking about losing money, and I'm not talking about making a bundle, but I think it could be self-supporting.